My name is Sandy Harvey. I think pretty much everybody knows me, but I'm also a board certified naturopath. But I always like to tell people in my BC life, that's my before children life. I got a degree in art, so art and design. That was my first degree, and that's something I still really love, and it's very much a part of what I do. And then I went back and got a master's degree in education. So I also really love creating resources and teaching and all those kind of things. So it's kind of proof that if you have a sort of a rabbit trail in your life of things that don't seem very connected, God can absolutely still use it all, and He does. So don't ever think that parts of your life are wasted, because He has a way of like blending all of that together into something really beautiful. So anyway, also I want to thank everybody who's already shared. I mean, I've already gleaned a tremendous amount of information from you guys. So thank you so much for sharing. And for those that are yet to share, I know it's going to be really, really good. And I agree with Sheila. It's like the body, and we all have different things we bring to the table. And oh yeah, the sun's going to get me now. Uh, so I kind of I shared this at one of the retreats down at the beach, but I kind of feel like we are almost our very own like flower essence. Like we're our very own blend. Okay, so yeah, so the thing is like what you bring to the table is very unique. It nobody else has what you have. Okay, so sometimes we put remedies and all of these things up on this pedestal, and they're wonderful, but they're nothing compared to the creation that you are. And so just know that if you see somebody else and they're really great at something, you're like, oh gosh, I stink at that. And then you kind of get discouraged because you're like, I wish I could be like that person because they seem like they've got it all together. But the thing is, like, you are uniquely you. And that is very special. And that's really the heart of what I'm going to talk about in infusing your vibe into your brand. Because it's better to be an original you than a copy of somebody else, right? Because God made you to be you. Your voice, your influence, your all of that is very unique to you. And there will be an audience that will resonate with you and what you have been through, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so we're going to talk a lot about like authenticity and the power of authenticity, in this. But the thing I just really want to start out with is that you embrace who you were created to be. And yes, we're all on the healing journey. We've all got areas that, we can improve on. But I told a friend recently, well, a little while back about this. She was talking about how she goes, I feel like I'm so extra. She was like, I'm so extra. And it wasn't Chelsea. Although Chelsea can be extra. Yeah. It was a different friend. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to be anonymous. No, it really was somebody else. Yeah. But anyway, no, she was just saying, she goes, I feel bad because I'm so extra. And she was like, you're just so roll with it, and just go with it. But I said, but you know what? You are uniquely you. And I said, I think of you like an orchid. An orchid doesn't apologize for being an orchid. An orchid needs very specific conditions to thrive, right? It needs a certain kind of light, it needs just a certain amount of water, all of those things. But it doesn't have to apologize for being an orchid, okay? I identify as a dandelion. Yeah, like I can pop up in a sidewalk crack, you know. That's funny. I can, just because, I have had to live through some really hard things, and I have had to learn how to thrive in some really hard situations. Um, and I do think that is a superpower. Now, sometimes I would like to be more like an orchid. than the dandelion, because it does feel like sometimes in life, like people are always trying to poison out the dandelions, right? Although I would point out that the dandelion, every part of the dandelion is medicinal and useful. The flower, the root, all the seeds, all of it. So there is a superpower to being a dandelion. So, that might be something fun for you to think about and kind of embrace who you are instead of beating yourself up for it, right?
Funny how you look at things too. Like my goddaughter, she sees my lawn was full of dandelions a few years ago when she visited me, and I said, "Yeah, there's just some weed, they're kind of gross or whatever." She says, "It's beautiful."
Yeah, it's
Right? So
beautiful.
it depends on your
It
perspective.
really does. Like, and I've seen that meme, some people see weeds and another person sees medicine. Like, I see medicine when I see dandelions because I do herbal workshops and retreats and things. And so, we can make dandelion oil, dandelion salve, dandelion tea, like, and it's so good for your liver. There's so many great things about dandelions, but so many people are just trying to choke them right out, so it does depend a lot on your perspective. So that's one of the things I want to talk about is infusing your own unique, authentic signature into your brand. And this is not just, esoteric stuff. These are things that will help you as you do, creating the reels and doing the things you do. Think about the things that are unique to you and your experience, right? Because that's going to set you apart. If you're just copying what everybody else is doing, you know, you're in a loud market full of a lot of voices calling out. But if you are very unique to yourself and your own voice, then the people who need what it is that you have will hear it. It's almost like if you were in a crowded marketplace and you know how it's just noise, 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 but let's just say somebody yelled out your name. All of a sudden you're like, oh, in that crowded marketplace, they heard their name. And that's kind of what this is. Even creating the reels and memes and things like that. Yes, learning all these techniques and all that is wonderful. Those are the practical things. But just be sure that you're not leaving out the uniqueness and the essence of who you are, because you have something special to bring to the table, okay, that's going to set you apart. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about infusing your vibe into your brand. So I guess I'll have to kind of show this a little bit so y'all can see where I am. But I like to show this graphic, it's got the brain off and the heart on, because so much of our lives are lived in that left brain side, you know, figuring things out, solving problems, and trust me, my brain can get on that track for sure. But what I'd like to say is to start thinking about taking some time to shut all that cerebral stuff off and tune into your heart space. And I love, love, love so many of the speakers at the Solex this time. Chelsea and I kept looking at each other, going, they're we're totally tracking. The things they were saying. I loved it because it wasn't a lot of hypey marketing stuff. It was really talking about aligning with who you really are and being authentic. Even to the point where Lauren said, with the new hub, he was like, you know what? Everybody doesn't need this. So you don't have to go max out your credit cards. I love that. He was not being a salesperson. Like, have you ever been in those sales presentations where they do use that scarcity and they're like, we only have so many of these. So, everybody rushes to the bat. So I love that they're more in alignment with serving people and ministering to people and their needs versus trying to push things on people to buy more, buy more, buy more, and I really love that. So I think as you're able to start tuning into your own heart space more, and I love the meditation that he did, there are lots of ways you can tune into your heart space. I'm very much a nature lover, which I'll talk about. So grounding, being outdoors, kayaking, being in nature, hiking, those are the things that help bring me back to center. And oftentimes it's when I'm not doing those mental gymnastics of like, oh, what should I do? What should I make? What should I create? What should I do? It's when I'm not thinking about any of those things. I'm just soaking it up and I'm in that heart space and I'm just worshiping and I'm just loving, where I am right in this moment. it's like I'll just start getting downloads of things. They just start coming, you know, because I'm not doing it out of a striving sort of energy. It's very, very different. So I love this. The vibration of being who you are and doing what you love is magnetic. So think about that. You know, he talked about the Heart Math Institute, and I love that, you know, because I follow a lot of their things too, and learning about the magnetic, like the field of the heart that's so huge. Wow, guys, like we put so much into the brain, like thinking about, you know, just think about our education system. It's all about testing according to all these cerebral things. But kids are intelligent in so many other ways outside of just book smart, number smart. That's what we test on in this society, in our culture. But there are so many other kinds of smart. That's a whole nother presentation that I'd love to do sometime. Different kinds of smart, multiple intelligences. But the thing is, there's lots of kinds of intelligence. It's not just the cerebral, you know, numbers and book learning, although that's what our culture puts all the emphasis on. People who can fix anything, people who can pick up an instrument and just play it, people who can are just great with people. You know, people just love them and feel comfortable with them. You know, that is a people smart. That's people who have that communication, that skill and able to align with people. That is an intelligence. So anyway, the vibration of being who you are and doing what you love is magnetic, and you will align everything you need in your life with that energy. So start thinking about alignment when you're creating things for your business. Think about whether that aligns with your voice and who you are. Does it feel authentic to you? So, and we even see in scripture, delight yourself also in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. And so the thing I'd like to point out here is that God cares about the desires of your heart. Like he cares about the desires of your heart. It's not like those are bonus extras. Like you might get some of those, you know, but he cares about the desires of your heart. And I would even say that he's wired you to love certain things. There's a reason certain things light you up, you know, like something that lights, like the beach lights me up. The beach doesn't light Chelsea up. So, you know, we have different things that light us up, but pay attention to the things that light you up. I'm telling you, there's lots of science behind what I'm talking about. This isn't just a bunch of, you know, like I said, just kind of esoteric things. There's actually a lot of science behind it. So the origin of the word courage actually comes from the word core, which means heart. So it means to share your story with your whole heart. So nobody has your story, right? Even the hardest things I've been through, the things that I thought, wow, will God even be able to use me now? Like, I just feel like, you know, like some things happen to you and you just feel like, wow, well, I just kind of like a second class Christian now, you know, but that was just a lie of the enemy, right? Because God, he will bring beauty from ashes. So to know that your story, even the hard things, are very, very valuable. And it'll speak to somebody. So it does take courage to be vulnerable, to tap into who we are and what we truly desire. It does take courage to do that. It takes tuning in. Because how many people woke up one day and realized that you've been trying to please other people for a lot of your life? It could be a parent, it could be, you know, it could be any number of things that you realize. You wake up one day and go, so much of my life has just been trying to please somebody else. So it takes time to kind of go back and go, wait, what about me? Who am I? Like, what do I align with? What do I love? Versus letting other people define that for us. So I like to share a little bit about myself. And so several years ago, speaking of being vulnerable, gosh, what year was this? 2017 maybe. I was meeting with a group of naturopathic practitioners in the Nashville area. That's the largest kind of major city near me is Nashville. So I was meeting with practitioners in that area, just kind of plugging in. Most of them were Trinity grads. And that first meeting I went to was we just met in somebody's home, several people I didn't know. I really only kind of knew a couple of people. And we were going around and we were talking about what we thought our practice, what we wanted it to look like, what we were going to do. And everybody was talking about, a clinic they were opening and all these different things. And I knew that the Lord had put on my heart very clearly to do retreats. He gave me downloads very specifically about what they would look like. They would be in beautiful locations, even the colors. And he gave me the name Healer's Campfire because I envisioned it as people coming together in collaboration and community with the warmth of fellowship and kind of a come as you are. Like a campfire, you're like, everybody's just coming as they are, And so it's more of a laid back, have fun, be yourself kind of thing. And so that the Lord had put that in my heart. But there was nothing in the natural for that to happen. Like I didn't have a place. I didn't have the money. It was a vision the Lord gave me, but I was like, okay, Lord, you'll have to, yeah. It was like, I know that this can happen, but the vision was the big thing. And I paid attention. I wrote it down. I wrote the colors. I wrote all those things that he was showing me. I wrote it down. So as we were going around, I felt impressed on my heart, like that's what I needed to share. But I felt very vulnerable to share it because I didn't. I could see somebody saying, oh, well, where are you going to have retreats? Oh, well, what kind? I was like, I didn't have any of that. So when it came my turn, I summoned up my courage and I shared that vision. And one of the reasons I didn't want to share is because I felt like I would cry because it was very near to my heart. And so I felt vulnerable to share it. And I didn't want to cry in front of all these people I didn't know. But I decided to share it anyway. And I did cry. But it was okay. They knew I was coming from my heart. And so I shared about it and I said, right now, I don't have a location. I don't have the things for this to happen yet, but I do have the vision. And I shared all that vision with them. And two of the ladies to my right looked at me and they were like, we need to introduce her to Carol. And I'm like, who's Carol? And they're like, Carol's our friend. And she has a 100-acre horse farm in Chapel Hill. And I was like, okay. So I contacted Carol. And we started talking and I met with her and we talked about, different things. And then the next thing you know, there's our location for retreats. And some of these people were at my first retreat there. Actually, quite a few were at that first retreat. And it was so beautiful because Carol had also been through some really hard life transitions. And so she was living on this 100-acre horse farm by herself. Like, what am I going to do now? So this was an answer to prayer for her because she wanted that place to be used for healing. So it just came together in this alignment. And so our first retreat was there on the horse farm. That was a big retreat. It was a training and retreat kind of together. I want to say there was like 15, 16, 17 practitioners, 18. It was a lot. It was a lot. But it was amazing. And here's just a few. There were others. Anne-Marie was there. But Sheila and I met there in person for the first time. Yeah. So I kind of, when I think back on that, I just think, if I had not met Sheila in person there, like, would I be here today on Sheila's team? I kind of doubt it because we made that in-person connection and you see how we're all, yeah. So we made that in-person connection and you kind of know when you connect with somebody like that, that, hey, I could work with this person, we could do some things. And so there have been quite a few things that have come up over the years, that we've been able to do together. But that just shows doing things like this, making the time and the effort to come to like Day of Discovery and these kind of things, is priceless. It's not just the new skills that you learn or the new launches. It's the people you meet. It's the connections. It's the support. That is gold. That is absolute gold. Like I wouldn't have met, and hearing some of you share, I'm like, wow, I had no idea. Like, your story and is it Shira? Is that her name? Yeah. And hearing more of Daryl's story. Of course, Daryl is a rock star. He's up on stage now with but no, I love to see him coming out and shining like that. It's awesome. It's wonderful. But those connections that we make at things like this is way more than just the value of the skills and the tech and all that you learn. You just never know how God will use it. And I like to call it a ripple effect, because after that first retreat, that set me off with other people. And the next thing you know, I did a beach retreat not long after that. And so there were other people who came to that one. And over the years, it's like there are people who've come to multiple, retreats. So it was just a ripple effect of really beautiful things. So I'm going to talk a little bit about your core desired feelings, okay? And this is a lot longer talk. I'll have to kind of skim over some things because I don't think we'll have enough time to go through all of it. But behind every desire is a feeling, and tapping into your core desires leads to your soul's goals, okay? So just think about that. When you start thinking about the things that light you up, think about that as pointing you in the direction of some soul goals, okay? Like for me, I really highly value freedom, okay? I really highly value freedom. It's a big deal to me. So that is one of my core desired feelings is freedom. So if I opened a clinic, I could probably make a lot more money than I make, right? But I love my freedom. I have a little office attached to the back of my house. I can walk out of my kitchen into my office. So I don't have like employees to think about. I don't have a brick and mortar to think about. And so when I want to do things like this, or I want to travel or whatever, I can work from anywhere for the most part. And that is high value to me. Chelsea and I are leaving here, and we're heading off for Yellowstone and Glacier. And we are so pumped. Like we've been planning for really months for this. And I have the freedom to do that, So being aligned with that. Now, there's a lot of people who have my degrees who make a lot more money than I make, okay? And I'm not opposed to making a lot more money. But what I'm saying is there are different kinds of currency, right? Money is a currency. But to me, freedom is a currency. Being able to work from anywhere, having a life that you really love is a big deal. So I told somebody the other day, I said, I really feel like my quality of life is happier than most millionaires I know. Nothing at all wrong with being a millionaire, multimillionaire. I know plenty of them. But it's just that the money is really not what is bringing that fulfillment. But now sometimes the person you have to become along the way is a big part of that, So, so knowing how you actually want to feel, that sense of freedom is a really big deal to me. So that is a really potent form of clarity. So when you are looking at ideas, and you are trying to kind of design what you want your life to look like, I really invite you to tap into these core desired feelings. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we go along and give you a list of things that you can kind of look at. But it's like when you see that word and it just sort of like, oh, yes, I want to feel that way. That is how I want to feel. Pay attention to that. That's really important. So when you start guiding yourself by caring about how you feel, you start guiding yourself back to your heart, okay, and your stream of energy. And that's where your clarity is. That's where your joy is. That's where balance, and that's where a lot of the good ideas come from. So the doctor, I can't remember his name. Abrams, yeah. gosh, he was just, all the things he was sharing, I was just like, wow, this is awesome. But talking about your heart space and working in the flow is so much of what he was talking about, and also Hannah Craig was talking about both of those things. So cognitively, cognitively, we don't locate emotions in our head, right? Like we're locating emotions in our heart. Um, so love, joy, enthusiasm, confidence, tenderness, connection, even sadness, grief, and anger.
Ice cream is a big deal.
It's a big deal. It is a big deal. So you hear people say, my heart exploded, my heart leapt, my heart sank, he puffed up his chest. I mean, there's just so much is coming from our heart space, and learning how to flow in our heart space. So the doctor talked a lot about this, so I'm not going to go way in depth on this, but the heart generates the largest electromagnetic field in the body. So it's about 60 times greater in amplitude than brain waves. So think about it. Like we put so much value on the head space, the brain space, figuring it all out. And that, I mean, so much of our energy goes to that. And a lot of times we're just so neglecting our heart space. And that's where so much of the gold is. But we kind of look at that as a luxury. It's really not. It's actually very, very important to tune into. So we tell ourselves, it'll be worth it when I get there, grind, crank it out, make it happen. And I'm not saying there's value in setting goals and things like that. But when we do it at the expense of the inner attunement, that's where we run into problems, right? If it's not in alignment. This is just some quotes about, people who have like spent years working on a goal, like years and years and years hammering away at this goal that they wanted to reach. And then they got there and they just felt empty. It's like all this that they wanted to attain, whether it was money or stature, fame, whatever, when they got there, there's like, is this it? Like it wasn't in alignment with their heart. I love the story. I think it's Elizabeth Gilbert who tells this story. She was the one who did like Eat, Pray, Love, the movie and the book. I think it's her. But she tells this story, and I love it. And if you've heard this before, I apologize, but I think it is really good. She tells this story about, she said there are some people, and she says they're like jackhammers. They do this one thing, and they just like, they hone in on that one thing, and it's just like a jackhammer. Their whole life, hammering it out, hammering it out, hammering it out. And sometimes we look at people like that, and we're like, oh my gosh, this person's so, like they stayed with that thing, and they made it happen. Their entire life they dedicated to this one thing. It's not bad. It's just, that was just their path. It's more like that jackhammer. And then she was saying, I always felt inadequate. She goes, because I'm not that way. She's like, I'm just more of I'll do this for a while and, tap into this, and then I'll go do this for a while and I'll tap into that. And then there's something else that'll come along and I'll tap into that. And she's like, I always felt like that was somehow subpar, to do that. She said, and then it dawned on me one day. She said that people like that are more like hummingbirds. And she's like, hummingbirds and bees are what cross-pollinates the world. So again, sometimes we look at those jackhammer people and we're like, oh, that's the way you get it done. You get in there and knock it out and grind and become the best in your field at that one thing. And that might be the very thing that person is called to. But you also could be a hummingbird. You could be the kind of person who is cross-pollinating the world through different things. You didn't have to stay with the whole thing all your life. I definitely align with that because, like I said, art, education, naturopath, I've done so many different things in my lifetime. But again, the Lord takes it and he mixes it all together and makes it really something beautiful. None of it was wasted. So you're free to be different. You're free to be different. You don't have to be like that jackhammer, and you don't have to be like the hummingbird. But you are unique to who you are. And that is something that you want to be able to tap into, not only just in your personal life, but in your business as you're creating things, to be that kind of person. So feelings are magnetic. Each feeling is like a beacon that attracts our reality. And who said that earlier? What we focus on expands. So we can focus on those life affirming feelings to create the experience that we want. Like this trip that we've got coming up. A lot of times it begins with a thought. Like for me, a lot of times I'll see an image and I'll be like, something that resonates in my spirit about that place. Like I really want to experience that place, you know? And a lot of times it'll just start out as a thought like that. And then the next thing I know, I'll be talking about it and I'll be like, wow, look at the color of these rocks at Glacier National Park. We're sharing pictures and, we both love rocks. I've got rocks in my pocket at all times. If you know me, I got rocks in my pockets. I got rocks in my pocket all the time. Yeah, I do. I always have rocks in my pocket. So we love rocks. And so then it was talking about it. Then it's like looking up things and researching. And then lo and behold, guess what happens? Hey, we're going out to Utah already for the Solex convention. And then we have another one in a couple of weeks. I'm like, hey, what if we just stayed out there and did some things, So it started out with like a desire, like something that made you go, oh my gosh, that's so beautiful, And then the next thing you're putting thoughts, you're putting energy into that. And now here we are, getting ready to do that. So it's beautiful how that works. So don't judge how you want to feel. Like, be open to it. If there's something that resonates in you, I know Sheila shared some things with me. Like, I know Sheila has big, big dreams. She has big, big dreams, like to shift things in the world, And so don't judge how you want to feel. If somebody, like, I want to live in a multi-million-dollar house on the beach, like that is my thing. Don't judge it. Don't judge it. That might be your thing. Hi. But even negative emotions can be worthwhile. We talked about this the other day. A lot of times we, like anger, for instance, we talked about how we generally tend to think anger is bad, right? But anger can be very, very helpful. Very helpful. As a matter of fact, I would say, and I heard somebody share this a while back, that, and I mean, I haven't researched this out, but it resonated with me. They said that sometimes on your healing journey, as you start raising your vibration and you start healing, you're able to start pushing out things that you were never able to deal with before. So a lot of times anger comes up because you had pushed it down for a long time. And now you are healthy enough to start letting it out. So I think it was Chelsea or somebody was sharing about how anger kept coming up on their skin over and over and over. And it's come up on mine a lot. And at first I'm like, oh, I don't feel angry. Like, what's that about? But I realized that as I'm healing, there were a lot of years that I had to push down anger, like really push down anger. I had pushed it down. And so that has been able to come up and I've been able to release a lot of that, through inner voice and other things. So even those negative emotions, and I won't spend a lot of time on this because you can go back and read it, but sometimes we even push away good feelings. Has anybody ever kind of felt guilty for doing something that they really enjoy? Like I have a little, like being away from my family this long makes me feel a little like, because I've been a single mom for a long time and I'm used to being there for my kids, even though they're grown now, I'm used to being there for them. So even though I'm very excited, there is part of me that I'm having to kind of work through being gone, and not being there for an extended period of time with my kids. So, why do we push away good feelings? Sometimes we don't feel like we're worthy of good things. That is definitely something where we can work on healing, you know? We're focused on pleasing others instead of ourselves. Anybody? Anybody feel like you spend a lot of your life working on pleasing other people and not yourself? Yeah. Sometimes we're trying to win in someone else's reward system. Come on. Somebody else's reward system. I won't get back into that with kids, but I see kids doing that a lot too. Really, really bright kids trying to fit into a system that they were not made to fit in. They're trying to win, but it's in a system that's like, is it Einstein that said, if you judged a fish by its ability to climb a tree, the fish would feel stupid, right? Why can't I climb this tree? It wasn't made to climb that tree. Put it in water, and then you'll be able to see the magic, right? But a lot of us are like the fish trying to climb the tree. So there's a lot of other good things in here about other people's, what other people think, all that kind of stuff. All right, I kind of talked a little bit about that. So desire is powerful. So oftentimes we think desire is frivolous. I already mentioned that. But no desire is meaningless or inconsequential. Okay, so pay attention to your desire, basically, and not criticize what you really want. I love thinking about your life as your art. Okay, maybe that's just that artist heart in me. Like, I loved your analogy of looking at us as like technology too. I think those analogies can really help us. Like you said, I can think about something as like, I'm going to shift right out of that, or like I said earlier, I'll have thoughts coming up and I'll be like, that's an old program. It's just running. That old program is running. That you're not good enough. You're not this enough. You're not that enough. Who do you think you are? Why are you doing that? Those kind of things I'm like, that's old program. Or that I need certain people or certain situations in my life in order to be happy. There's all kinds of old programs that we start running. So thinking about your life is your art, okay? Moving closer to your soul goals. So sometimes that requires some difficult choices. Sometimes that requires making some decisions that are very different than what you've done before. Now, that could mean, like, one of the examples that she gave was like, maybe it's somebody who's been an attorney all these years, but he's always actually wanted to pursue music and be in a rock band. Maybe it means pursuing that passion. Or maybe it's somebody who's been in a rock band who always wanted to go to law school. It could be either way, So sometimes it does require switching things up a little bit. So sometimes we have fear-based motivators based on avoiding pain, right? We don't want to disappoint people, that kind of thing. I definitely have had trouble with that. But the problem with avoiding pain is that your energy always stays constricted, right? So you're more uptight, you're less trusting, and this kind of stress inhibits your love, your creativity, your access to your soul. So you've been running to avoid the whip, but when you do get to your goal, it'll be bittersweet. And I love this quote by Lily Tomlin. She says, "The trouble with the rat race is that even if you win, you're still a rat." So, so I don't know about you, but wow, I don't want to end up there. I don't want to be running in somebody else's rat race, only to wake up and realize, like, that wasn't even my race. Like, I was operating in some other system. So being aware of that and knowing that you can shift out of that. So, but thinking more about what does it elicit a full-on yes, or pardon me, sometimes like a hell yes. If it does not elicit that hell yes, like yes, maybe it's not what you need to pursue. To think about it. you know? So there's some other things here that you can, is it moving me forward? Do I feel more like myself when I'm doing this? Do I feel more like myself? Now, kind of equating this in natural health, I think one of the things as practitioners that can be difficult is like sometimes I'll listen to a practitioner who's very into all the labs and the blood work and the all of the details, and they can spout off studies and quotes and all that kind of stuff. It's like, wow, like I look at that and go, that's so smart. You know, they sound so smart. But I'm like, I can't hold all that stuff in my head. You know, that's just not my thing. Uh, but I can talk about these kind of things all day. You know, I can talk about helping bring people back into homeostasis. I call it the shalom zone. I do craniosacral therapy along with some other therapies, but I really think one of the greatest things that I'm able to do in my practice is to help bring people back into that shalom zone because that's where the healing happens. And I don't have to understand all their blood work and their labs and all that, but I know that if we can help bring them back out of fight or flight into rest and digest, stay and play, whatever you want to call it, that the body will begin to heal. Because your body does not like to heal when you're in that fight or flight state. This is the way I describe it to my clients. I said, imagine that you're building a house, it's your dream house, and you're ordering all the most expensive equipment, like all of the materials are top of the line, and you're sending it out to the job site. But all your workers are sick. They're sick with the flu. You know, they're laid out. You're sending all these good things, but your workers don't have the energy to do what they need to do with what you're sending them. So when we're living in fight or flight, it's like our energy is going out to fight some perceived war. Your fighters are gone, putting out fires. Okay? So you want to be able to bring all that energy back home so your body can heal. And so that is what coming into that shalom zone does. So when somebody finishes a therapy and they say, I just have this sense of, like, I feel like things are in harmony. I feel I have a sense of well-being, you know, like I feel a peace I haven't felt in a long time, you know. So sometimes at the very end of a session, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever felt this relaxed in my entire life. And I'll say, okay, see how that feels? Like that's home base. Like that's where we want to start getting to living in. We want to live in that shalom zone state. Let me see. So I don't want to go over my time, but I would like for you to think about like what is inspiring you? Like what are the things that light you up? Like what are the things that if you could really start tuning into those heart desires, what would that look like? I mean, is that something most of you have done, or is that something that you're like, I have no concept of this? You haven't done it. So it's a worthy thing to take time to start paying attention to those things and start designing your life and your business around that. That is what I mean by infusing your vibe into your brand. So there's a beautiful twist that happens when you assume your worth. When you realize your worth, that your desires also matter. It shifts some things. So knowing your own self-worth actually is a service to humanity because you're stepping into what you were created to be. And when you do that, you're able, your light shines so that other people can see it. And that's what I have shared as, you know, when I started doing inner voice about a year and a half ago, and I rarely miss a day doing inner voice, it helped me to begin to shed some layers of things that I think most of them were fear-based. You know, like you don't want to be out in front. People will criticize you if you're out in front. You know, then people will be able to criticize you. You know, all those things that kind of keep you in the background, to be able to start shedding those layers. So I would really love for you, and the words are on here, on that document I sent you, but to start, like, select about 10 words, less if you can, five's even better, and start making a list of those words that align with your core desired feelings, like how you really want to feel, and start thinking about those. What words feel like home? What words feel like home to you? When you look at that list, you'll see some words on there. And I start with a big list and then I narrow it down. And it'll change. Like what your words are now may be different. So you can see there, when you're in alignment, what you need finds you. You don't have to rush. You don't have to stress. You don't have to overextend yourself and work harder and harder. But you're able to work from a sense of exuberance and joy. It becomes more of a play to express yourself completely and unapologetically. Alignment grants you the privilege of being your most authentic self with ease to just be. And now that's something Chelsea and I talk about because we work together on a lot of things, the Mudwise, and we work together with Solex. But we have fun in pretty much everything we do.
It's worth it if it's not fun.
Yeah, we're like, yeah, if we start talking about doing something and we kind of feel that drag on it, like, oh, that sounds, you know, we'll be like, you know, we don't have the good energy around that, you know, and we literally have just shifted gears going, I'm not feeling that. And we shifted to something else like, oh, I'm excited about that. Like we recently were upgrading some things in the course and we were talking about ways to do it. And it was just it felt hard. And then we were like, what if we just did a retreat and we incorporated this into a retreat? And then we got excited. And then we picked out a place, San Antonio. And then we went and picked out this gorgeous house near the Riverwalk. And then the next thing you know, we've got all these people coming to this beautiful retreat in San Antonio. We're going to the Riverwalk. We're teaching this course. But now it's fun and it's exciting, you know. And it was more in alignment with kind of what our core values are, you know, for community and connection, and fun. So this was just a picture of some other retreats, you know, talking about following that joy. This is one we did last fall, I think, in Chapel Hill. We did an herbal one, homeopathics, and mud packing. We did all three of those. And here's just some more of those kind of retreat things that we've done. And then our Buds and Bloom. So we carried that over into our team's theme for Solex. This is just some testimonies that I had gathered. But I just want to remind you again about the power of being who you were created to be, like your own unique essence, your own unique fingerprint. It is a beautiful thing. And you can absolutely infuse that into what you were doing with Solex or with any other business. And I do believe that is the thing that will set you apart, is to infuse that brand into your own brand. So thank you guys so much. Anybody have any questions? I ran over, but we started late. So anybody have any questions?
I don't, but I love your idea about soul goals.
Yeah.
I like those words.
Soul goals. And when you start tuning into those desires, you start getting to those soul goals. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So, all right. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I'm going to get out of this sunshine.